whoever is in charge, I feel it is like your duty as an American to like read up on what's going on. So often I have found myself the victim of this in the last 4 years since I am a left-leaning individual of not paying as close of attention to things. And something that I don't like that's currently happening is like, obviously, like I'm going to vote Kamala. Obviously, like a lot of us on the left are going to vote Kamala. But what I don't want to have happen is like us blink and like literally 4 years from now, because like right now, the Democratic Party does not have an official party platform. Mm-mm. And they're doing that on purpose. But they're also doing that because Trump did that and got away with it in 2016 and 2020. And what I don't want to have happen is like people that are just now starting to like look at like what's happening with like politics. Like we need to be very careful of like not letting stuff like that slide. Like, again, I'm voting Kamala. I am not going to tell anybody what to do with their vote, but that's what I'm going to do with my vote. And just because I'm going to vote that way doesn't mean that like we shouldn't hold people to like a certain standard.
Ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else who is here, my name is Dom Amour, and you are listening to the Black Man Talking Emotions podcast. On today's episode, I speak with one of my best friends, Mark Reichard, about living in LA, working in the film industry, politics, and so much more. The vote is precious. It's almost sacred. It's the most powerful non-violent tool we have in a democracy. This is the Glenlivet 14 I drink with every episode that I can. And this is the last glass I'll pour for a podcast this year. So cheers to you.
Hey.
And I'm going to finish the rest of that on leisure time. How about that?
Fancy boy.
Mark Richards. We've been trying to make this happen for years. Officially years, I've been trying to get you on the pod. And you're finally on the pod, you piece of trash. Good to see you.
What a nice intro, huh? Isn't that nice? You hear how he talks to his friends, everyone? Isn't that just awful?
How are you doing? You live in Los Angeles. You work in movies, of course, TV, whatever you can do. How are you doing? What are you up to right now? How are you feeling? How are you been?
Good, man. In 2023, the industry, went through a strike. Shortly after that, we were thinking about maybe another potential strike in 2024. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, knock on wood, I've been able to weather it pretty well, but I certainly know a lot of really talented, good folks with resumes far deeper than mine who are out of work. So I am grateful to be working. I've been able to work on some pretty fun things this summer, finished a feature up this summer, prepped for a short film that starts this upcoming week and we'll shoot through the weekend. And that will be a tremendous amount of fun and with a really good group of people. So I don't know, things are going okay for me right now, all things considered. And I'm breathing easy compared to where I was last year, at least with pending strikes and whatnot.
Strikes. America's way of making things right. How about that? How flippin' stressful was the strike for you? Like, now that you've had a chance to get back to a place where you're like, oh, I'm actually too busy now. Like, you got to a place where you're like, damn, I got so much going on. Reflecting back, when you think about when it first hit, how devastating was it mentally to think, oh my God, we might not work for over a year?
For me specifically, it's strange. So much of everything that I'm doing is just like uncharted territory for myself.
Yeah.
I feel like so often in this whole experience out here, I've almost always felt kind of slightly out of my depth. I don't know. I kind of naively went into it being like, well, we'll see how this goes. But I mean, that's kind of how it's been. It's just been a ride. It was stressful in the sense of like, it was another unknown. However, it was just more than anything, it felt kind of empowering in a way. I remember like how the workflow was right after things started trickling back into work after COVID. Mm-hmm. I just remember how insane that workflow was while wearing 2 masks and a face shield while you've got someone walking around set with a 6-foot long stick saying like, you're not at 6 feet, you got to be at 6 feet, man. You got to take a step back, man. I think about that, and we accomplished a lot of really amazing things during that weird time, but it also led to a lot of people thinking about things that they hadn't really had time to think about because, we weren't doing anything else.
Yeah.
A lot of us anyway. So it was interesting to like have that in the background while people are like grateful to be back to work, but also working at a pace that's kind of unprecedented. Yeah, it was stressful at the outset, but it was really amazing to see what people were able to accomplish in that time.
Yeah.
Although we still have our work cut out for us. People need to figure out how this industry is going to become profitable in the way that it used to be with the new streaming universe that we live in. But
yeah,
speaking on like what I can only anticipate as the contraction of the industry within the scope of like AI and other things that are coming on the future, like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel any different because that's just as much of an unknown to me now as the strike was then.
And I feel like not only with the strike, but you also had like the stuff with Alec Baldwin happen as well. Mm-hmm. And that was so bizarre in the community in LA, I'm sure, with that still being in court right now. How do you feel like the industry has changed the way that you look at everything? When it comes to waking up every day and saying, okay, I got to go grind. Like you said, you had this awakening and you were able to feel some type of relief because of the fact that you were on strike, and it was this idea that it's going to be better, hopefully, afterwards. How do you feel your approach to what you do, to the people in your industry, has changed with all of the stuff from the strike to the pandemic to someone being murdered on a set because of not properly doing things that are protocol? Like, everyone in the industry understands what was wrong about what happened in that scenario. So you continue to see all of this different activity in the industry. How do you approach everything now? Do you still enjoy it? Is it just a job to you now? I know that's kind of crazy to ask, but I'm always curious to hear what you think and how you're feeling.
That's a good question. I try to hold on to that feeling. I think you got to protect that as much as you can. I work with so many talented people. You see the whole spectrum of people's outlook within that group of talented people. You've got the people who are excited to be there because they've been able to protect that kernel of creativity and imagination that either brought them out here or brought them into the industry in the first place. And you see the people who, through life and circumstances, have become somewhat jaded. And I'm happy to report that I think most days I work, I find something to be excited about. I certainly have worked on things this year and in years past where my whole approach was, I'm just going to like work super hard and I'm going to throw myself at this full force. And that's how I'm going to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. What I found, especially lately, is like, you got to take time within yourself and step away from it sometimes. But also, like, you got to focus on the things that got you there in the first place, because whatever you do, you got to figure out why it is you're still going for it.
Yeah.
And if you lose sight of that, that's when you see the people who are already complaining and you're an hour into the day and you're like, oh man.
And it makes it harder for you.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, I'm not even thinking about the stuff that you're bringing up, and you're throwing this negativity at me. And I'm like, I didn't even notice that. But yeah, what he's saying is kind of true. But still, why? Or is that the way you're approaching it,
Mm-hmm. And that is, not with that to say, I worked on a project this year where I was the grumpy Gus at the end of the project, as time went on. I mean, like, there are responsibilities and things that you need to do and certainly accomplish and be responsible for. But you got to like have fun with it still. Otherwise, you're going to run out of fuel pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think that's been part of why I've been able to continue to keep riding this crazy wave out here. Although, I've had moments of feeling super jaded. Certainly, I see things for what they are a little quicker on set.
Yeah.
I can see certain patterns before they happen, and that's interesting. But I think I'm still just like super excited. Like, I just worked on a project where we shut down the Sunset Strip, and there's a music video coming out on Friday for it. Stuff like that's fun, man. Like, I got to explore like the Roxy and be given the tour by the staff there and see like all the super secret weird rooms that exist within that building. And there's been other like projects I've been able to work on where like you get to explore Los Angeles or like weird parts of the world where like, yeah, the job is stressful, but the job's always going to be stressful, man. Like it's whatever job you do, like whatever boulder you decide to roll up the hill. Yeah, it's always going to suck.
Yeah.
Like that sucks. But like you got to like accept that. And you got to find the thing that, or the things that are fun to you about it. Sometimes you don't even know like when those are going to present themselves. I worked on this feature. There was this older gentleman named Josh. I shouldn't say older gentleman. He was a distinguished, mature gentleman named Josh Meltzer. Shout out to Josh. You know, he worked in the art department. He was like so nice, like really kind eyes and wonderful energy, and just like had like great like dad / like grandpa energy, right?
Yeah.
Legitimately such a sweet guy. We get to this scene in the movie where we are walking into this house where this super brutal like stabbing just occurred. Like, I mean, like super bananas. Like it is horrendous looking, helter-skelter looking stuff, right?
Okay.
And I looked at the call sheet that day and Josh's call time was like hours before anybody else's. And like you walk into that, I'd been in that house like the day before and it was like a really beautiful house in Simi Valley and just like stunning, whatever. And then I walked in the next day, just, I mean, truly haunting things. And Josh has like a little, like, it looks like a ketchup bottle of like fake blood. And he's doing the finishing touches on this kitchen counter. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man, who did all this? And he was like, oh yeah, I just been in here just setting this. And this is like the nicest, sweetest dude. And you're just blown away. And then suddenly this guy who you've been like seeing at like the snack table and like at like catering and that you have just been like chatting with, you know, and he's been saying encouraging things to you. You're looking at him and you're like, what is going on in your sick little brain, Josh, that allows you to execute that so well? And like and I say this purely, you know, I'm joking. Of course, I love Josh. You know, you see these people who are like stunning at what they do and you can't help but like in those moments be like, so wait, how did you do this? Is awful looking. How did you do this? That's fun. I love that.
You know, Mark is one of those friends who make it harder for my other friends in my head. I feel like I don't really have to ask him to reach out. I don't have to ask him about his life. I mean, he makes sure that I'm up to date, and he also checks in to make sure I'm okay when most people don't. And so I value his friendship more than most. I believe that if I needed someone to look out for me, I know that Mark will. And he's always been that way. He's always been that guy that people think, man, he's just so generous, or I don't know if it must be an act because he's too nice kind of thing. And I always know he's genuine. When he says something, he's being honest. And that's something that has never changed about him. Coming from Jefferson City, he's grown a lot. And he's been able to see a lot and understand where he needs to be better for himself. And he's not looking at it as, oh, I'm being better because I think everyone... No, he's doing it for himself. And that's encouraging to me. And it just helps our friendship because we both are trying to grow. We both want to help each other grow. We want to look out for each other. We want to make sure everybody in our circle is good. We care about each other. That's my guy, you know. And this conversation, like I said, it was a long time coming. I really wanted him to be on the first season, but he's crazy busy in LA. And the first season came together so well. I was like, all right, second season's going to happen. And we almost got to the end of the second season and it didn't happen. And I honestly think the fact that it happened at the end of the season is better because I knew that eventually we would talk politics. And the last time I had a politics conversation was Jay Boogie. And we did politics talk. And it was before Kamala actually was the nomination. So there's so much more to talk about. There's so much more to dig into. And also, it's another element of my LA life because Mark was a part of that LA life. And so we both understand everything that happened there and why it was so weird and difficult or great in some ways. So this was something that I really looked forward to. I was very happy with the outcome, and I hope that you enjoy it. I really felt like this was a great conversation, and I send all my love to Mark. That's my guy. You know, some with the pod, I feel like one of my overall things, of course, is just talking to people and actually speaking honestly about life. That's the way I like to pursue every talk, every conversation. I feel like I want to hear what people are going through so that people can listen to that and understand that this is normal world. You know, social media makes it seem like we all are in this upper great place. And then some people take the opposite route where look how sad life is and I need help and this and that. But us just talking, you have the good, you have the bad, you have the ugly, you have the cool, you have the funny, you have everything. And I try my best to always illustrate that with every conversation. One of my goals have always been that I would love to eventually get to a place where I could like put like a hotline or something together so that aspiring artists and performers can speak to people like you who actually are working, performers who, you know, you're not as crazy successful as, you know, or Scorsese or someone like that, but you are constantly working. You're actually on the grind. You are a working performer in the industry. And that is something that a lot of people don't highlight. They talk about everybody who is at the top of the mountain instead of the people who are in there working. You hear some people highlight the PAs and the assistant directors and the prop guys. You hear it from time to time, but you don't get movies about that, you know, and if you do, it's a comedy, you know, it's not good. It's the worst version of what could happen to someone, you know, but you've had the pleasure of being able to do like a master class or a conversation with students, right? You've already done that before, right?
Yeah, I've done that a few times with the high school students in my hometown. Yeah.
In my head, I always feel like if I ever got the opportunity to do that, my first thing would kind of be trying to separate the people who are just there to be there and the people who are truly there because they want to be there and believe that they could do this. Because you were there with me when I heard this the first day in R&P freshman year.
Shout out to R&P.
Yeah, right. Hillary came in and said, hey, one day you're going to be poor. If you can't handle that, you need to leave. And I still think that that moment is one of the best moments I could have had as an aspiring artist, as someone who wants to do this. Because before that moment, my vision of me being successful was, you know, getting the cars I wanted, getting the girls I wanted, living in the big cities, traveling the world, being uber successful, performing. Just because I sing, I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to just do whatever because I'm a good singer. I'm going to be good. And then after that moment, I actually stopped and was like, wait, I could be performing every day in a week and be broke still. That's really possible because that's what's happening now. Because at that point, I'd already started performing. I was already going out and doing gigs. I already was meeting people and people telling me, damn, you're really good. You're so good to be 17. I heard that so much as a kid. Continue to hear it. All the way to now, I'm the 35-year-old guy at the old jam talking to 23-year-olds who like, oh man, and you're still young. And I'm like, okay, dude, I guess I'm still young, but I'm feeling like I'm still grinding and this is how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be in a place where you are successfully performing and increasing your craft and growing as an artist. You just continue to grow, and as success comes, it comes. But continue to grow, continue to be better, continue to want to learn, continue to want to increase the things that you're doing. Don't settle, try to challenge yourself. These are the things that I always want to go for. So for those master classes, I've always wished if I get in a position to do it, I want to separate the people because I truly believe you got to be okay with doing this for free. You got to be okay with doing this for as cheap as possible and pushing yourself to a place where you are getting what you are owed eventually. But if you start out and you're thinking I'm supposed to get $900 for a 2-hour set, like you're not in the right headspace, you know? So how do you feel like you approach talking to students, high school students, kids, people who look at you and say, oh, that's so cool. I would love to do that. Like, how do you approach that conversation? Because a lot of people hear that. I remember my teacher in high school, I told her I was going to be a music teacher. And I remember like it was yesterday. I said, yeah, I'm going to school. I'm going to be a music education major. And she like, oh yeah, you're going to be a music education major? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, it's really hard. So, be ready for that. And that was the conversation. And I was like, damn. And of course, I'm not a music education major, of course, but it was incredible to see that was the way that she approached me about it, instead of trying to either lie about, oh, it's great, or encourage me to, oh, make sure you do this because it's going to be difficult. Like, she was just like, you really think you're going to do this? You're not going to do this. And I was like, damn. How do you feel you approach those kids who actually really want to do it, but you're like, they're still green,
Well, first of all, shout out to you for getting mistaken to be a much younger man. I can't say that that's ever happened to me. So
you've had grays since we left Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Yeah, dude. I was working on a thing this spring, and I was working with this girl. There's no way she's going to listen to this. Her name's Veronica. If she does listen to this somehow, then shout out to you, Veronica. You're a real one for listening. but I was working with her. And, it's like one of those things of like, I'm going grayer, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, do I look older? No, I don't look older. Like, I feel like I look the same. And then you get to set and this girl's talking about so-and-so, this like guy that like I did not know that she worked with on another show. And she's like, yeah, I don't really like him because, well, no offense, but all he does is hire like older white guys like you. And I was like, oh, am I old? I guess I'm old. Yes, I guess, but I'm not that old. Maybe I am. I don't know. There's just a difference of experiences there. How do I approach? Well, you don't want to be too discouraging about the obstacles ahead. And it's funny. I remember that same presentation that Hillary made in that rehearsal and production class. Mm-hmm. Just different experiences, man. You hit that and it was a moment that really kind of set things in motion for you. I heard that and I had no frame of reference for what that meant because I was a broke college kid. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I'll be broke. It didn't, it's not until like you are in it for a while and you see, in my case, I look at people that I know who are back home with houses and they're going on vacations. And I had a conversation with a friend of ours not too long ago. And he was saying like, when's the last time you took a vacation? And I was like, buddy, I have never taken a vacation. Are you kidding me, dude? What? Never once. My vacation is I go home and see my family for like a week and then I come back here. That's the vacation. But I don't know. Don't be afraid to be honest either, because kids are only going to be able to take things where they are in that moment.
And I feel like they need that honesty. If you're trying to butter the biscuit for them, I mean, what good is that going to do when they meet their first asshole in Hollywood that has no type of understanding of people's skills, who looks down upon other people because they have found success in a certain way or they knew the right people? You got to be honest.
Yeah, I think acknowledging how hard things are, or like the things that you struggle with, are empowering, because it's one thing to hear like you're going to be poor. Okay. But it's another thing to like find yourself having to pick between like a couple of jobs you really don't want, but you have to take. Like, that's like more so the message that like I think should be delivered. But also like, I don't know, I try to just give kids practical steps that they can actually take.
Yeah.
Things that they can do. Because I've only spoken to kids in Jefferson City, but I imagine that like while we're years apart, the community hasn't changed all that much. And yet things are so much more accessible now with technology to be able to shoot something. I mean, I think anybody going into film, or anybody who's ever even thought about acting or filmmaking, you can approach it in a way that is pretty tangible and easy to do. It's just like anything, like, unless you've got someone who has the know-how or who has a perspective, like, you're probably just not going to independently think of it. But like, you could, now with like the phones that we have, you can shoot a pretty good little short and you can figure out like what the advantages are between like a 2-shot or like an over the shoulder shot or all these various shot types that can tell your story in various type of ways. And you can do that for free.
Yeah.
And you can buy a little stabilizer, your phone, for pretty cheap anywhere for that purpose and shoot yourself a good little project. Filmmaking is just such a different landscape than it was when I first came out here. Like I first came out here and YouTube was like really starting to take off. But I don't know, if you think about it, when we graduated high school in 2000, we the first iPhone came out not too long after that. And now, I mean, you can shoot a whole movie that looks pretty good on an iPhone. And when we graduated high school, like you had to be in one of the bigger cities. And I don't mean St. Louis or Kansas City for those in Missouri. I mean, like you had to be in a Chicago, a New York, or Los Angeles just to have access to the type of equipment that even looked good enough to tell your story in a way to where enough people would take it seriously and want to watch. And now, I mean, you're seeing it all across the industry about how there's like this scattershot of the industry almost. I mean, you're seeing all these hubs for it picking up. And some of that's to do with tax incentives being put in place. I mean, Missouri just put one into place. If I'm not mistaken, fact check me if I'm wrong, internet, I think it's the highest tax incentive per any of the states in the country. It's 42% tax incentive for TV and film. And if you shoot in Kansas City, there's an additional 10% on top of that. So you have 52% tax incentive. Now that does certainly make quite the difference. And you got to hope that, at least I got to hope that in 10 years time, there will be enough of an infrastructure there to shoot. But regardless, like I think that the world is a lot more open than it was even when we were in high school. I mean, it used to be you had to go to like a certain type of school. And now, I mean, you can get noticed making little shorts on TikTok, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But pretty cool. That I think that's like where I try to approach it is like people are going to get stuck into like that TikTok, like forward facing camera. Let me do a little factoid about whatever. Like that's like going to be a format like visually that like is going to be around forever. But like there are steps that people can take right now for free if you have like an iPhone and like a Mac that you can cut it together with that like can teach you the basics of movie making that are pretty accessible. And then the rest of it just comes with time and experience. And you can't tell a young kid like, hey man, it's going to be hard moving to Los Angeles and you're not going to have any of your friends. And like, you're going to be stressed about money. All you're going to think about is like, how am I going to pay my next bill? And you're going to have people talk reckless to you while you're working a catering job because like they're rich and they feel like they can. You got to figure out in real time how to build the emotional wherewithal to make it through that and still look at yourself in the mirror the next day after someone's disrespected you to such a degree. Like you can't tell a young person that because they'll just hear that and they'll be like, oh, okay. Like exactly how I was when I was 18, you know?
You're going to see a 13-year-old kid blitzed out of his mind at his bar mitzvah. That's what you're going to see at one of these catering events. That's a true story.
You're going to see some,
you're going to see stuff that you think is very illegal.
You're going to see some stuff. Working these jobs you got to work to make ends meet, man. You're going to see a breathtaking portrait of humanity that maybe you didn't even want to see. Los Angeles is a wild place, man.
It's crazy, dude. I think more and more, because the one thing, and I feel like I always have to backtrack on certain things. When I talk about St. Louis, I talk so passionate about it that you would think he hates his hometown. It's like, no, I love St. Louis. I love St. Louis. LA is the same thing where I struggled so hard there because I felt like I was around the wrong people to do what I wanted to do. So I wasn't really exposed to the proper groups. And nearing the end of it before the pandemic was when I started to find my little tribe. But I felt like it was too late in the sense that I was over LA already. I was like, oh, I can't stay here. So leaving was easy. And that was the hard part. It shouldn't have been easy for me to leave after finding the people that I should have been working with. So I always feel bad because I'm like, LA was so bad, this and that. But LA was great in many ways. I did love LA. I did love being able to, go to the beach and Malibu and see the water and experience just crazy things like driving through Bel Air, thinking about Fresh Prince or going down Sunset, like seeing all the billboards. It was incredible. But the shit that you saw from the people really was crazy. It was a crazy place. It is something so unique. I used to tell people that New York City is the one city in the country that I feel like nothing else in the country reminds you of New York. And I still believe that. New York is that place where you go to New York and that's the only place you can go there. Like the only other place I could think that's close to it, maybe New Orleans, but even then you go to Charleston or Savannah and you get New Orleans vibes there. So like New York's the only place where you're in New York, you feel like you're in New York. In LA, I feel like it's the opposite of that. You can have any type of place you want. You could be in the mountains, you could be in the desert, you could be by the ocean, you could be in the hood, you could be in the slumlords areas, like where they're like anywhere you want. You could be anywhere. You could be in Hancock Park, you can be around all the Armenian people. And with that being said, it just was so diverse and weird and crazy. It was overwhelming.
I think that's the same thing that Kobe Bryant said was his favorite thing about Los Angeles, was the variety of experiences and how you can kind of shape anything. Well, who knows how much of a say you have in shaping
right? He could shape it the way he wants. He was flipping Kobe Bryant. But with that being said, telling a high school student that is impossible almost. Trying to open their eyes to what LA truly is. Hey, you're going to work here in this place and, Tuesday, you'll see Arsenio Hall eating chicken enchiladas at the restaurant down the street. Thursday, you'll be walking out and Regina King will be walking her dog to her house. And you'll be like, oh my God, celebrities everywhere. Yeah. Friday, you're in Hollywood and there's 5 rats eating a pizza at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. Like, what? Like that same thing can happen in this city with all these stars and this rich people. You go downtown on Friday or Saturday, whatever day of the week I'm on now, and you're walking down the street and you're seeing these old, beautiful, beautiful theaters on Broadway, and you keep walking, just la, 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 and you're walking down flipping Skid Row. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is LA for you. It's so crazy. At each corner, you don't know what you're going to get. It's so unpredictable. That's the word I think that I would have to describe LA to anyone. It's unpredictable. You never know what the fuck you're going to get.
Truly, man. I think there probably aren't too many people, many more people than yourself that I have told more of my really crazy Los Angeles stories to. I've told so many and forgotten, and then you'll remind me of like some key word or phrase, and then it'll open some memory of something long forgotten about how some insane thing happened at work or just in life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Los Angeles, man. Yeah, definitely. I don't think I could have picked a better setting for myself personally to kind of really come online.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say what happens in Los Angeles is reality, because I know it's quite different than other places, but like that is my reality. So like, I don't know anything else to base it off of. But man, this is a place that has tested me in every single way. And usually, I mean, most times I'm like laughing about it, or at least I am when I'm telling you about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is good. I'm glad that like I can laugh at it right now. There were times like I couldn't laugh at it.
When you say there were times, what give me an example of a time you couldn't laugh at it?
Oh, I mean, like I think about catering, right?
Yeah.
Not to keep harping on catering, but like, okay, I show up to bartend at this house in Beverly Hills. They had 3 bars set up. They had 1 in the front yard and they had 2 in the backyard for this wedding. And I'm in the front yard. I'm handing people glasses of champagne as they come in. People are heading, through the house and having a good time. And some are milling about in the front yard. Most people go to the back. And this girl comes up to the bar in the front yard about an hour later, and she's obviously pretty inebriated. Mm-hmm. And so I said to my fellow bartender, like, hey, let's not serve this chick anything. Like let's hold off. And you know what? Let's go ahead and just like spread the word to the other bartenders that like we should probably just like probably chill.
Yeah.
He's like, all right. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go tell the other bars, like just hang tight for a second. So I go to the other bars and I'm like, hey, this chick over here, she's wearing this, like she's pretty wasted. Like let's kind of like hold off for a little bit, whatever. And everyone's like, yeah, great idea, whatever. While I'm gone, my co-bartender has to go to the bathroom and has someone cover for him who does not know what is happening.
Of course.
So by the time I get back to my bar, that woman, she had gotten herself another glass of champagne. And I see it, and she's at this tall table, and I was like, oh, man, how did that happen? Like, I feel like I just told everybody, like, whatever. So I get behind my bar, and like he comes back from the bathroom, like my co-bartender. I was like, you see this? Like, that chick's like, oh, come on, man. And he's like, oh yeah, my bad. And then he and I are like cleaning up and like slicing, garnishes or whatever. And then we just hear like a crash, right? And we look up, and this chick had like broken her like glass of champagne on this high top table that we had set up, right? And we're like, okay, whatever. So I grab a rag, and I like come from behind the bar. And as I'm walking up to be like, hey, I got it, don't worry about it, this chick, I mean, she's wasted. She is like so drunk, she doesn't realize she doesn't have the manual dexterity that's required to do what she's doing. And so she's just like basically pawing at like all this like broken glass like that's on the table and picking it up for like a pile. And I was like, hey, miss, I got it. I got it. And she's like, no, sir, I feel so bad. Like, don't worry about it. And I was like, miss, I got it. And I walk up with like my rag outstretched, and she goes to like put it, like kind of fling the glass that she had been holding into the rag. And when she did that, blood like flecks off of her hands onto the rag, and she realizes like her hands are like super cut up. So then she starts like freaking out and starts like flicking her hands everywhere. I'm getting like sprayed in the face with like this just like blood in my face, on my white shirt, on my tie, whatever. And then I was like, miss, oh my God, miss, oh my God. And like, I like turn around and like to my co-bartender, I was like, grab a rag and put some ice in it. So he like grabs like a clean like napkin, puts ice in it. We like walk it over to her hands. She like leaves the party. And then I went to the back to like grab my spare shirt that I had brought to change into it. And my manager at the time, Ari, shout out to Ari for being the king of all dick, goes, Richard, because he never said my last name correctly, why aren't you at the bar? And I turn around just covered in blood. And I was like, what do you want me to do right now, man? I'm covered in a strange woman's blood. And like, I think about that story now, and I think I just laugh because like, how absurd is that? Like, that is such a crazy story. And yet like for a while there, I mean, the insanity is now just like shifted to like my other job now, which is being on set. But like, like at the time that was just like another Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that would happen, and I would just get so annoyed. And now I just like, I laugh and like I acknowledge like, wow, I got through that. I don't know, because I've worked on some crazy things by this point, like whether it was like just other BS jobs I had to work, or like working on sets and things that used to would probably have like shocked me into a state of like inaction. Like I just kind of like take it in stride, so to speak, now. So yeah, I'm just grateful that like Los Angeles was like my playground to like gain some of that with. I think I would have like probably been okay had I gone somewhere else, but I'm glad that it was here. Because like now I feel like I can handle most things.
Yeah.
My mom was saying to me the other day that sometimes she like laughs about me when I moved out to Los Angeles versus now. Because like I just didn't have the ability to like set boundaries or like stand up for myself when I first moved out here. And now like that is very much not the case.
Yeah.
And I can smell a scam when it's occurring. And I can tell when someone's like a BS artist who like, I don't need to invest any of my time or emotional capital with this person. Out here matches kind of what I wanted when I was a younger man. Without like, I wasn't the type of kid to like sit down and try to manifest and think out my future and what it was going to look like. But like looking back now, I'm like, wow, this is like actually pretty close to like where I wanted to be and pretty close to what I wanted to be doing. I mean, there's still things I'm striving for, but I think if you were to like ask 18-year-old Mark who just met Dom and we're auditioning for Big River.
Yeah.
I'm auditioning to be racist number 3.
Number 3.
On stage.
I'm slave number 2. What a time. God.
I think I would be pretty stoked,
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't ever think about that stuff unless like I'm chatting with you, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. That was a thing that happened. That was a show that I was in. These were things that we did.
Not only did we do it, they did it again 10 years later because, they just had to do that show for some reason.
Wait a second. I don't think I knew this.
Oh, you didn't know that they did Big River again? It was the
No.
10-year anniversary, and they were like, "We're gonna do Big River again." I'm just like, why is that musical even still a thing? It's like Carousel. Like, there's no reason for people to perform that musical anymore.
Why?
Why would you perform that's the question. It's about a guy who just beats everybody, and then finally he pats someone's on the back once and says, "I guess you're okay," and then that's the end of the musical. Like, he's a horrible person. Why are we following this horrible person? My mother pointed this out to me, and I guess that's just musical. We were talking about Hamilton, and I was like, "Man, it's just so good." And she was like, "But he's a horrible person." And I was like, "Huh, he is a horrible person." I guess it's just musicals. I guess we just like horrible people in musicals, and that's the dream. So when I started this podcast, I wanted it to be a place where I can be more honest and kind of create this new space for me to talk directly to people who support me, people who enjoy what I do. And I wanted to create a place where I can promote my own stuff and do the things that I want to do. And it's my happy, safe place. So this is the last show of the year. And the one thing I've been working on nonstop this past month, since I haven't had to do any recordings or any editing, I've been working on my demo for my album I'm going to be releasing real soon. As of now, I'm hoping that it's next year that I release it, but it's possible I could be releasing it at the top of the year after next year. But the goal is to really get this album put out and to have people who support me actually purchase the album. I'm not looking to stream. I'm going to put some album songs on streaming every month, but I'm not going to put the full album out on streaming. I'm going to do some different stuff with this one. I want to have a vinyl. I have some digital for people who don't have record players, of course, but I want to create an album, a work of art that is full. It isn't just singles. It's something that's unique to me. And I'm very proud of the work that I've already done. I pretty much believe that I have all of the tracks except for one. I think I need to write one more song for this project, but everything else I've been writing this album for years now. There's songs on the album that I wrote in 2012. So that tells you that I've put a lot of work in, and it's hundreds of songs that have gone into this one project. And I'm hoping that I've gotten it down to the final 16, 17 songs, or maybe get it down to 14. We'll see. But with all of that conversation, I'm going to do more promo. I'm going to do more talking about how I want people to receive this album. But since this is the last episode, since I want to leave y'all with something that I wouldn't do on any other episode, I want to actually give you a song from the demo project that I'm working on that will be on the next album. So hopefully you dig it. Here it is. You're just so beautiful, and you stole my heart. You can take me there, anywhere. I'll follow from the start. Clouds above, but you still shine. No ladder, but you still climb. I'm yours, and you're mine. I'm yours, and you're mine. You and I both have unique situations we're in, and this is the way that I see it. You and I come from Missouri, which is an extremely conservative state. But the difference is I came from St. Louis, which is a crazy liberal city. And you came from Jefferson City, which is a crazy conservative.
Which is another liberal utopia.
Oh, yeah. And after years of living, we both end up in opposite places. You live in Los Flippin' Angeles, and I live in Sharpsburg, Georgia. And I say that specifically because I'm in Coweta County, which is a red county. Everyone around me has a certain somebody's sign in their front yard. I'm just curious because the one thing that I think I miss about St. Louis was the idea that everyone around me thought and actually did their research the same way as me. So when I would have conversations, this past week I did a wedding in Nashville, and we were just in Nashville, and I was talking to one of my friends from St. Louis who lives in Nashville now. We talked for like an hour about what we've been doing to prep for the election and studying who we want to be in and how we think it should be outlawed that you can just vote all Democrat or vote all Republican. You should be forced to actually do your research to know who, what, when, and where, and why you're picking these people, not just because you're on one team. You've done your work and you understand what's at stake. That conversation really just was so refreshing because living here in Coweta, I don't have those conversations unless I'm talking to my wife or my in-laws. It's not like that. People don't even like talking politics down here for real because everyone is usually opposite. So it's like, all right, I see your sign over there. We're just going to talk about how the weather is today. And that's going to be our conversation, period. Because the other side don't look at each other as if they're smart. You're an idiot for believing in that. You're an idiot for believing in that. That's the way people treat each other down here. So coming from St. Louis to this, living in Chicago, living in LA, living all over the country in these liberal hubs, and then settling outside of a liberal hub. I live close to Atlanta, but I am outside of Atlanta. It's difficult for me because I am a person who's, like I said, passionate about the things that's happening around me. So I want to help. I want to be able to talk. I'm looking into working with the Coweta County Democrats and seeing what I can do down here. I'm looking to volunteer for election season this year because this is the year where I'm like, I need to actually do more. For you, being in the scenario where you came from the belly of the beast, and now you live in LA, which is the belly of the beast of the opposite side. How do you think it's affecting you when it comes towards going to vote? Do you think your vote doesn't even count? Because you're in LA, you're in California, your state's gonna be a blue state. How does this election season make you feel? How do you feel that you're gonna approach it? Have you already been studying? Do you care? How are you approaching it? Because you're in a different scenario. For me, I feel like I'm in a state that people keep saying is a swing state. We're in a battleground here. Last time we got 2 Democratic senators, and I truly felt like my vote counted. It felt like I had to vote. If I didn't vote, we would have been close to losing, you know? How do you feel is for you on the opposite side?
I feel like my vote counts to an extent with the national stuff. The thing that I have been the last couple cycles been trying to be better about is the local politics. I think about pop culture and TikToking and whatever has happened in life. That's the natural progression of the flow of information. And yet sometimes it's weird to me, like the things that we all seem to know and the things that I feel like everyone should know. Like, I'll give you an example. I keep getting like on like my Facebook, because my Facebook is just like Facebook's weird now. Facebook is like happy birthday posts and then like posts from pages that I don't follow, giving me factoids about celebrities that I don't care about. Mm-hmm. But I think like there's like weird factoids that like everybody is like being delivered that like people hear about. Like Jim Carrey was a jerk on the set of Man on the Moon. And like, this is something that like people talk about because like he went full method, and people could like talk casually at like a barbecue about his like behavior on that set and go on at length about like how strange it was. And because I've heard this at parties, I've seen this with my own eyes happening in front of me. And yet I'll bring up like, hey, has anybody heard about the story about like the latest city councilman who just got hit with a crazy corruption and fraud charge? And people go, no, I didn't even hear about that. And you're like, oh, it's just the people who are like drawing up the neighborhood lines and fighting over resources. And like, I mean, like, for those who aren't in the know, like Los Angeles just got rocked with a scandal in the last couple of years because there was this recording of, I think, 3 city council members at the time, including like the president of city council. Yep. Were all speaking horribly about another city councilman's district and saying super racist stuff on audio. Since then, like the person who was from like the labor movement who was there, like he stepped down. He was like the president of like labor in Southern California or something crazy. Two of the other city councilmen have stepped down. The other dude is running for re-election. Like, he has not stepped down. And not only do people like not know the original story, but like that's like that, but like that's crazy to me, because like not only do they not know, but like they know this like other thing that does not matter. And like that is like something that happens to me pretty often recently. It's just like we get caught up in the cultural zeitgeist of like everybody knows the pose of like the Turkish shooter, and like, you know, sidebar, that's like one of the hardest photos of all time. Like the guy, so like no shade to that guy.
No limp of his body was like, I'm not gonna make this perfect.
Yes.
He knew what he was doing.
Dude.
He was so dope.
So while I criticize both of us having this knowledge, that photo is super hard, and that guy is a gangster for real. Okay, into sidebar. You know, I feel like all of us we know that, but like, I don't know. I'm trying to get more plugged in, like on the local level, just because like you always hear growing up, like that's where you're going to have the most effect and change, but it really is.
It is.
Politics is going to be what it is right now till hopefully this current season blows over. Things are going to be this way for, you know, maybe a while. Whoever is in charge, I feel it is like your duty as an American to like read up on what's going on. So often I have found myself the victim of this in the last 4 years, since I am a left-leaning individual, of not paying as close of attention to things. And something that I don't like that's currently happening is like, obviously, like I'm going to vote Kamala. Obviously, like a lot of us on the left are going to vote Kamala. But what I don't want to have happen is like us blink and like it'll be 4 years from now, because like right now, the Democratic Party does not have an official party platform.
Mm-mm.
And they're doing that on purpose. But they're also doing that because Trump did that and got away with it in 2016 and 2020. And what I don't want to have happen is like people that are just now starting to like look at like what's happening with like politics. Like we need to be very careful of like not letting stuff like that slide. Like, again, I'm voting Kamala. I am not going to tell anybody what to do with their vote, but that's what I'm going to do with my vote. And just because I'm going to vote that way doesn't mean that like we shouldn't hold people to like a certain standard. I have a guess of like what she's going to do. And like, she's the antidote to like a flaming turd sandwich.
Yeah.
But like, what I don't want to like have happen is like us just like blink and the Democrats are like still without a party platform. And you're like, oh, that's a fun way to like not make any promises. So therefore you don't get in trouble when you don't deliver.
Yeah. And you know, another thing with that makes me nervous is just the idea of people not understanding how the government works. I've been seeing more and more recently when people on the right talk about Reagan, they talk as if he was Julius Caesar. He was some legendary figure who was the greatest president ever. So whenever a Republican becomes president, he's the best president since Reagan. He's the best Republican since Reagan. Reagan. But for us, Barack Obama didn't do enough. You know, on the Democratic part, Barack Obama was this evil murderer who killed all these people with drones. He didn't do enough for the black community. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. He didn't. But they don't talk about the fact that the Republicans, every day of his presidency, 8 years, did everything they could to not work with him. And then he didn't have full House and Senates. So he wasn't able to do certain things, but he still did so much. And people act like, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Right now, we're in that same scenario where Kamala, why didn't she do anything about the wall? They were going to do a wall bill. They had it. Trump said no. Why do I have to bring that up? Why do I have to remind people that happened? Why do people act like that the Senate and the House and the judicial system, all of that doesn't matter? Why do people act like it's just the president who makes the gas prices high? The fuck are you talking about? That's the hard part for me too. Like you said, like you feel like we are going to avoid keeping our foot on the gas and we're going to blink and boom, we're going to be in a situation where we're like, damn, she didn't do this or she did this or she didn't do that. I agree with you. And I feel like not only with that, it also goes even higher to the sense that we purposefully put ourselves in situations where it's good and bad at the same time. You know, we're watching people on our side, Andrew Gilmore or the Florida, the guy that was going for governor in Florida, black guy. I remember him being this big Democratic symbol in Florida and getting pushed. But then he got caught up with, you know, a couple of gay guys or transvestite or something, and there's pictures of him butt naked in a apartment or whatever, and he was on crack or something like that. I forget what exactly was going on. First and foremost, what the fuck's going on with that? But two, I remember how we handled it as Democrats, and he was taken out of office or he was not allowed to run, or they actually was like, no, this is not good. And he's doing podcasts and stuff now and still working, but he's not representing the Democratic Party anymore. If that shit happened on the other side, they would find a way to put that shit under covers and he'll still be working, like you said. In our eyes, is like, it's good because we don't want that to represent us, but then also it's like we're taking another soldier off the field. And it's like, damn, we're losing soldiers on our side instead of empowering ourselves. And it's like, there's no answer to that. I can't say, hey, we need to do this. I don't fucking know what we need to do. But I feel like the Democrats have way more negative coming from the way that we approach how we vote, how we judge our people, because we are thinking logically.
Yep.
Where someone could be a horrible person, we'll be like, yo, you're a horrible person. We don't want you to work for us. But then on the opposite side, they're not thinking logically. So you don't like black people? Cool. Okay.
To me, though, what we're speaking on, as frustrating as it is, though, is signs that we do still have a relatively healthy left wing of the country.
Yeah.
In this coming election, I'd love to see Trump lose, obviously because of who he is and what he represents. But I would love to see a return to something that resembles a little sign that there is going to be like a healthy part of the right wing. I mean, we almost saw it after 2012 when Romney lost. The Republican Party did their famous autopsy of that election and decided that they were going to do more of an outreach to like communities of color and voices that they had not really been seeking out before. And then obviously they went another route the next election. And I'd love to see something that resembles that more, because that resembles a more accurate reflection of like what America is. Mm-hmm. Because like I have to hope that, because that's the only way that like it can, I think, get any better is if he loses and it's like a resounding like, hey, like this doesn't win anything for you all anymore other than like a few points in a culture war perhaps, but it, like no real staying governmental power. That's what I'd love. I'd love for that to happen so we can get hopefully back to something that resembles something like both parties working together on certain things, because where we're currently headed is like untenable. Approaching like politics, like with, you were mentioning like not talking about certain things to your neighbor. I don't know what the solve is there either. I mean, younger me with fire in my belly was ready to like talk about it. Now I definitely still talk about it, but whenever I do engage with someone who really doesn't think the way that I think, that fire is certainly still within me, but there's like this like feeling of like I have to like be reasonable past the point where I normally would with this person, because like I'm desperate for a sense of like, you see this too, right? Hey, this isn't cool. And you see this too, right? Because I think 2016 to now, I mean, really 2016 to 2020, that entire period, I was like so all over the place emotionally. And like now that I've had time to look back on it, I think it's because I, in a way, was like grieving a sense of commonality with my fellow American. Like this feeling of like I have common values with my average neighbor. Because like growing up where I grew up, it's quite conservative. It's more conservative, I think, now than it was when I was growing up, which is to say something. And I knew that like I was in a pretty conservative area of the country, so when I came out here to Los Angeles, I remember thinking like, well, like I know that the Jefferson City, Missouri brand of conservatism, but I know that it has to be different than like that has to be an extreme version versus like what else exists. And I think it does still exist, but I think they've just been so browbeaten into being like submissive at this point that it's just kind of like, I think there's like people like myself who, even though I don't agree policy-wise with many things on the right, I'm desperate for someone with integrity to rise up from the ranks and for people to like actually start calling things for what they are, because it just feels like we live in this split sense of reality. And it's very much because of like our information sources. And that's bigger than you or bigger than me. And so sometimes, it can be really frustrating. I mean, I don't fall prey to it as much as I used to when I was a young man. Like whenever I thought that like, if I could just make this point, if I could just string these words together in this order that like it would like pierce the bubble of like around this person of like what they're hearing. And like now, I'll listen to someone, but like that feeling of like I can change something or plant the seed to something, like I think that's gone. And so now I'm just like hoping for like a white knight, so to speak, like to come in and save us on like the right wing of this country. Because man, if I have to listen to that bozo who doesn't know what he's talking about anytime he opens his mouth and is just riffing, it's like watching a bad comic riffing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Like your setups suck, your content sucks, no one's laughing, no one finds this charming. I would just love to like not hear that anymore and like hear someone who like I disagree with like on every point of it, but like I'm not offended by that person's presence.
We've made it to the end of the episode. See, it flew by. That's how it happens every time, man.
Wow.
Very simple how I end these. This is the last interview of the year. So you're appreciated. You were a bonus interview that I did not think was going to happen. And I appreciate you for actually making it happen. So I like kind of planned on this not even happening, but it happened. And I'm so thrilled that you did it. It is so great to talk to you. Last question I always ask, very simple question. How do you feel?
I feel good. I hope that this was interesting for someone to listen to. I think what I would like to tell people as like we head out of this episode is that now more than ever, it is important for us to seek out community and for those that fill your cup and who are like-minded with yourself. It's never too late. Find that group, do that weird thing that like you love and like find your tribe, man, because we got to figure out how to make it through this weird kind of growing pain together. Be excellent towards one each other and do the weird thing that makes you feel out of your depth, and you never know what will happen.
I want to thank you for listening to the Black Man Talking Emotions podcast. The opening quote credit goes to the late, great Senator John Lewis. I've been having a lot of people speaking to me about politics online, so I want to make sure that I correct something that I said in the pod. I said the bill that Kamala tried to get passed was a wall bill. It was actually an immigration bill. That's what I meant. And Trump indeed made a call to have that bill stopped because he wanted to use that as an angle in his debates and for his campaign. I was just fired up and wall came out instead of immigration. Also, Andrew Gillum, not Gilmore, was the mayor of Tallahassee, and he was running for governor in Florida, and he was found with a male escort, and meth was the drug of choice, not crack. I'm sure people are wondering, why are you explaining all of this? Well, like I said before, I had a lot of people reach out and try to undermine my views and tell me that I'm either gullible or not properly informed. And I just want to let y'all know I do my research on all of these subjects. And sometimes I might say the wrong word or name. That isn't enough of a mistake to claim that I don't know what I'm talking about and to undermine me. That is not how you talk to people about things that you believe in. So I thank you for listening to this episode. Shout out to Mark for being on the pod. Follow Mark at PLUARK on Instagram. Please subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, and give us a good rating. 5 stars, please. And thank you. You can support the show by clicking the link at the bottom of the episode description. Also, I send all my love to you and your families for the holiday season. It's a big time for me, and I look forward to hugs and food and laughs and all that jazz. So follow me at DOM_LAMOUR on Instagram or at DomLamour.com. The marketing for my upcoming album, Dommy, will begin soon, and I would appreciate all the support you can offer. I'm Dom Lamour. Much love.